Good afternoon. My name is Jack Poma. I'm the Administrative Director of Nursing Services at Beaumont Troy. Just to give you a little background on myself, I've been in healthcare for 35 years, pretty much all of it in emergency services. I was a paramedic for 10 years, and I've been a nurse for 25. And I'm here today to give you a little talk on summer safety for seniors. So I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to be going through, which you'll see on your screen. And so we can go ahead and get started. And if anybody wants to ask any questions at any time, I like to be informal and conversational. So go ahead and please speak up. So when we talk about seasons and danger related, most people believe that winter is the most dangerous season. They think of the ice and the snow, the traffic accidents and things like that. But believe it or not, actually, summer is the most dangerous season of the year. For anyone that has ever worked in a larger hospital, you know that for hospitals, summer is trauma season, as we call it. And there are a number of reasons for that. There are more automobile, motorcycle, and bike accidents. We have watercraft accidents, drownings, falls from roofs and ladders. There are heat-related emergencies. People get allergic reactions to plants and insect stings and bites. Everybody knows about fireworks injuries. And there's an increase in alcohol-related accidents. So I'm just going to give you a little statistics. I don't want you to fixate on them. They can be kind of depressing. But it's just a little background information. For trauma-related accidents, over 40,000 people every year die from motor vehicle accidents. The most of those are actually in summer. And I was surprised to find out in summer, the highest month for motor vehicle deaths is in August. And if you want to take that even farther, actually the highest day of the week is on Saturday. So, and the reason is simple. There are more people out on the roads. There are more teens on the roads for longer periods of time. You've got people on riding motorcycles and those super fast sports bikes. And so in order to stay safe, seniors need to drive defensively and be aware of the other drivers on the road. Seniors don't cause most of the accidents, but that doesn't mean they can't die in them. So it really behooves you to be aware of your surroundings and be careful. Also, you need to be careful traveling on holidays. We all know about the increases in traffic during the summer holidays. People tend to be drinking more, out for longer periods of time. It's just a good idea to limit your activity and your driving, especially if you can, and be more careful during those periods. Falls are the #1 accident for seniors. And I put this in because I think these statistics are pretty sobering and one that all seniors need to be aware of. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 3 seniors falls every year. In 2010, there were 21,700 fatal falls among seniors. The direct health care costs of these falls are over $30 billion a year. So it has quite an impact on our economy, quite an impact on our health care costs. 20 to 30% of these falls in seniors results in moderate to severe injury. And I can tell you firsthand, we see them all the time in the ER. They're very tragic, and they can be the result of nothing more complicated than tripping over carpet. Falls are the largest cause of traumatic brain injury. So it's really, if there was one thing that I could really try to impress on the senior population, it's to be careful when you're walking in your home, and even more important in the summer, because you tend to be outside more. Seniors tend to be more active in summertime, just like everybody else. And you tend to be in more unfamiliar environments. You go to parties, you go to parks, you go to the lake, areas where you don't travel every day, and so the footing might be unfamiliar to you. So you need to be careful. There's an increase in home improvement activities. I can't tell you in the hospital how many people we see in the summertime who have fallen off ladders, fallen off roofs. So you need to be really careful if you're doing those types of activities. There's also an increase, and this is something that most people really don't think about, in wearing less secure types of footwear. You see people wearing flip-flops, sandals, little cloth shoes and things like that. These are footwear that are make it much more easier for you to slip, trip, and fall. So if you're going to be in an unfamiliar environment or a place where you know that there's going to be uneven footing, you should really wear secure shoes that tie to make yourself safer. There's also an increase in crowds and congestion. If you're more active seniors, you might be going down to Comerica Park to see the Tigers, or doing other things downtown, or going to more crowded parks and things like that. Again, crowds and congestion lead to increases in falls because of jostling and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about fall prevention. First thing you need to do with fall prevention is to be aware of your surroundings and be aware of your limitations. If you normally have unsteady gait or uncertain footing, if you have to use adjunctive devices like a cane or a walker, make sure that you're able to navigate safely in wherever you're going to be. Be careful on unfamiliar or uneven surfaces like docks, ramps, pool decks, places like that. You know, hold on to your spouse or somebody else that you're with if you need to do that. Exercise care when biking and wear helmets. That's one of the most important things that we try to emphasize in the hospital is if you're going to ride a bike, it doesn't matter if you're a child, a teenager, an adult, or a senior. You really need to have an ASII rated helmet to keep you safe in case you fall. Again, I mentioned wearing secure shoes that tie. That's on a bicycle as well as on an unsecure surface. It's real easy to slip off a pedal. If you're wearing sandals or flip-flops, you can break your foot, severely damage your toes. So I can't overemphasize that. And for you guys, especially if you're working on a roof or a ladder, make sure someone else is home and knows where you are and what you're doing. So now we're going to talk about heat-related emergencies. And this is actually, when I was researching this topic to give this talk, you know, this was kind of a surprise to me. Heat kills more people every year than storms, floods, tornadoes, and hurricanes combined. Approximately 250 people a year in the U.S. die from heat-related illnesses, and 6,200 a year roughly are hospitalized from heat-related events. And this is just in a normal year, a normal weather year, nothing unusual, no extended heat waves. In the last 20 years, we've had several instances where we've had protracted heat waves in various parts of the world and in the United States where many more people have died. In 2003, some of you might remember there was a very famous heat wave in Europe that lasted for weeks and weeks. They estimate that approximately 70,000 people died from heat-related illness. These were a lot of people in older cities that didn't have air conditioning and things like that. And the majority of those people were, you know, infants and small children and seniors and ill people. So it's something to take really seriously. Another reason seniors have to be more aware of the heat are because seniors have less protection than younger adults. They have less thermoregulation mechanisms, they perspire less, and they have less sensation of being hot. And so, and you can see that even if you go down to Florida, you know, it'll be 80 degrees out, 85 degrees, and you'll see senior citizens wearing long pants and jackets and things like that because they've acclimated to the heat down there. So you have to be more careful as a senior. Medications also can contribute to dehydration in hot times. You know, who among us here is on high blood pressure medication? I know I am. Who has blood pressure medication that's combined with a water pill? I do. So, and I know that's very common therapy for hypertension. And so this can have an additive effect with the heat, as well as helping you to lose water and electrolytes and hastening the onset of heat-related illness. So you want to be careful. Make sure that you stay well hydrated. Most people don't know, but at 95 degrees and 95% humidity, your body is unable to unload excess heat in the surrounding air. Because of the humidity, you just don't exchange that heat, and so heat just stays inside you. If you stay outside for long periods of time, your body temperature will continue to climb. Your medications can also degrade in hot, humid environments. So if you don't have air conditioning in your home, try to keep your medications in a cool, dry place. You'll notice on a lot of package inserts and stuff, they'll tell you, do not store above 75 degrees centigrade or 70 degrees centigrade. That's the reason for that. Your medication can be rendered less effective. Breathing conditions such as asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease are definitely worse in heat and humidity. We see a lot of people coming into the ERs on hot, humid days because their perceptions of their breathing is worse. They just can't seem to catch a breath, and so they need to come in and get breathing treatments and get into a cooler environment. Can also increase extremity swelling and other chronic conditions such as congestive heart failure. So you really want to be careful in those hot, humid conditions. You also want to pay attention to the heat index. The temperature alone doesn't tell the story. When you have temperature that's coupled with high humidity, that makes the heat index go up. So it might be an 85-degree day, but if it's really muggy, the heat index might be 95 degrees, which means your body is reacting to that as if you were outside in 95-degree weather. So it's very important for you to take precautions then as well. So there are several conditions that are caused by the heat that I want to go over with you. There are heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke, and we're going to talk about them in that order. Heat cramps are defined as the loss of salts and water from the body through excessive sweating, producing painful cramps in the extremities or the abdomen. These are often accompany physical activities such as walking, jogging, biking, sports, or for people that work out in the heat all day. You see these guys in the construction industry, the road crews, roofers who are working on hot roofs that are tarring. Those are the guys that are really prone to getting heat cramps. Along with that, a person may also feel weak, nauseated, headachy, and start to feel faint. This is generally an easily treated condition. What you need to do if you think you're suffering from heat cramps or getting close to that is you need to get into a cool place, preferably someplace that's air conditioned. If you can't get into an air conditioning place and you're outside somewhere, get into the shade. Make sure you rest and drink plenty of fluids and just take it easy until your normal body sensations returns. The cramps go away, you feel pretty much like yourself. If that happens, do not return to that kind of strenuous activity that day. Go home and rest for the rest of the day. And do not take salt pills. I don't know if these things are even available anymore, but I remember my dad taking these things all the time in the summer when I was a kid. But we now know that they can really lead to increases in congestive heart failure and metabolic derangement for people that are on blood pressure or heart medication and things like that. So it's better just to deal with the cause of the problem, which is to get out of the heat and rest and rehydrate. And don't skip your normal medications. Once you return to normal, you can go ahead and take your blood pressure pills and everything just like you normally would. Any questions about heat cramps? The next and more serious heat-related condition is heat exhaustion. And this is a condition that's defined as dehydration and electrolyte loss from heat and excessive sweating. The symptoms of heat exhaustion tend to be more severe. They include weakness and dizziness, nausea, vomiting, headache, confusion, lethargy, sometimes fainting, rapid heart rate, breathing, and low blood pressure, and that's from the dehydration. The person will typically look very ill. They'll have pale, moist, or sweaty skin, and they'll be very weak. You can usually pick this person out right away. It is considered a medical emergency, especially in the elderly or in children. So what you want to do is get into a cool place immediately. You want to call 911 and make sure that they can get to the hospital. While you're waiting for 911, you want to cool the person with cool, moist towels, and if you have a fan, have that blowing on them as well. That'll start bringing their body temperature down fairly quickly. Don't ever use ice directly against the skin. You can actually damage the skin structures. The best place to put the towels or ice packs that are wrapped in a towel are around the neck, back of the neck, in the armpit areas, and in the groin. You have large blood vessel plexuses there that can help carry the cool blood around the body more quickly. And then once they get in the hospital, we'll treat them with IV fluids containing electrolytes. We'll do continuous cardiac and temperature monitoring. And usually the outcomes are good. People might spend a night in the hospital recovering, but they usually do fine with a little bit of treatment. One of the things we want to monitor them for is side effects, especially if they're a heart patient and they're experiencing a rapid heart rate because of this heat exhaustion. Some of these people can get heart rate up to 140, 150 beats a minute, which is pretty high. So, and then the last condition, heat-related, is heat stroke. Heat stroke is defined as heat and electrolyte loss so intense that sweating stops and your thermoregulation processes of your body become completely deranged. There's an area in your hypothalamus in your brain which is responsible for regulating your body temperature and responding to changes in heat or cold. When your body temperature rises too high, and it can be anywhere above 105, 106 degrees, your heat regulation mechanisms in the hypothalamus cease to work. And so your brain stops telling your body to sweat. And this becomes a vicious cycle. You stop sweating, your temperature goes up more. The more your temperature goes up, the more your heat regulation faculties in your body become deranged. The heat stroke person is very easy to recognize. This is a life-threatening emergency. People need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. These people will typically be unconscious or very close to unconscious. They will have hot, dry, and red skin, so no sweating, which should tip you off right away that something's going on. If they are conscious, they'll be very confused and lethargic. Most of the time, these people will be unconscious. If left untreated, this will progress very rapidly to seizures, coma, and then death from organ failure. So the treatment is to call 911 immediately and use the other measures that I cited previously with heat exhaustion to try to start cooling the person down. The moist wet towels, a fan, anything that you have at hand. So, fortunately, heat stroke is not very common in our area. It's much more common in areas like in the south or out in the desert southwest, where temperatures can get up to 115, 120 degrees in the daytime. In 35 years in healthcare, actually I've only seen a couple of cases of heat stroke. And I'll never forget the first one that I saw. I was working at Beaumont Royal Oak, and I was working in central supply. It was even before I became a paramedic. And I had to run some equipment down to the emergency department. And when I got there, there was a young guy who was about 35 years old. And he was an avid runner, in really good shape, father of 2 children. And for some reason, it was like a 95-degree day, really humid, he decided to up his mileage from 4 miles a day to 8. And that was the story we got anyway. And I don't know why he decided to do that, but he collapsed by the side of Southfield Road. Some motorists saw him go down, called 911 immediately. He was only a couple miles from Beaumont. They brought him into the emergency department. His body temperature was 112 degrees, his core temperature. This guy ended up going on life support, and a couple days later they ended up turning off the life support, and he died. It was really a tragic event. When I got to the ER, he was actively seizuring, and I've just never forgotten that. So, in his case, to me, was a wake-up call, because I was an avid runner at the time, and I kind of thought, I was a young guy, and I thought, being in good shape is a panacea for anything. This couldn't happen to me. And I learned that day that being in good shape will not save you from a heat-related emergency, if you don't take precautions. So I really urge you to take the precautions when you're going to be out in the heat. Prevention of heat-related illness is really very simple. Stay cool. Turn on your air conditioning and just stay indoors. If you don't have AC and it's really, really hot and humid, get to a place that has it. Spend the majority of your day at the mall, in stores, at a movie theater, at relatives or friends' house, but don't stay in the heat if you can't help it. If for some reason you have to stay in a place with no air conditioning, stay inside, draw the drapes, keep the inside cool and darker, and become an early bird or a night owl. And simply that means limit your activities to early morning or in the evening. Don't go out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a 95-degree day and cut your lawn or decide to clean out your gutters or fix that shed you've been waiting to get to. Stay indoors during the hot period. The sun is strongest from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's when the most UV rays are out. Take frequent breaks if you have to do anything outside. And drink tons of fluids. You can't drink too many fluids on a hot, humid day. And when I say drink, I mean water, juices, and electrolyte-containing aids like Gatorade. Don't drink things like caffeine, alcohol, or sugary sodas. These things all act as diuretics and can actually help dehydrate you. So you want to stay away from those. If you're a heart patient or a blood pressure patient and you take water pills, make sure you monitor your urine output. If you've been working outside and you're drinking and you haven't had to go to the bathroom for a couple hours or so, it's time to get inside, take a rest from the sun, make sure you rehydrate. That's your body's telling you that you're using up fluids probably faster than you're taking them in. If you're a senior, whether you live alone or it's just you and your wife or whatever, one of the things that you need to do during really hot weather is stay in contact with your friends and family. Just like the admonition I gave the guys for if you're working out on a roof or something, make sure they know where you are. Make sure you stay in contact with them at least once a day. And if you have friends or relatives that are vulnerable, that have trouble doing stuff for themselves, that need help, make sure you check on them at least once a day. You can form a mutual call tree with your friends and relatives. So, you call me, I call him, he calls her, so that people are staying in touch with one another and everyone knows that everybody is okay. If you haven't seen or heard from somebody for a number of hours, not a bad idea to go check on them or have your relatives come and check on you. Always have a list of your medications handy. That's in case you have an emergency or a power outage or something like that and you have to go somewhere else quickly or EMS has to come to your area. If you lose power, water, go and stay somewhere else. And I know this sounds like a no-brainer. I'm sure you're thinking, thanks, Jack, like you have to have a PhD to know that. But you will not believe the number of older people that will try to tough it out through a weather emergency, either in the summer or the winter. They lose power, their utilities go, and they're trying to tough it out for days in a house with no heat or a house with no air conditioning. This is really a mistake. You need to go somewhere, whether it be to a motel, to a relative's house, where you can stay comfortable. Just this winter we had, there was a power outage in one of the areas, and there was a senior woman that was staying alone in her house for 3 days without power. She was freezing in there. She had animals. The neighbors noticed that, they thought she was there. They called the police to check on her. They saw that she was at home, broke into the house, and they had 911 bring her to the hospital. I was talking to her and I said, why didn't, and she had kids. She had 2 or 3 kids in the area. I said, why didn't you go stay with one of them? And, she told me, I didn't want to bother them. My son's got an important job. He can't take the time, This is really just mistaken thinking. You really need to go where you can remain comfortable and safe. And again, a reminder for everybody out there, don't forget about your pets. If you're vulnerable to heat, they're vulnerable to heat. They're just as vulnerable to sun as you are. They're just as vulnerable to heat. So you need to make sure that they're comfortable. Don't put them out in the backyard for hours at a time on a really hot day. Make sure they have plenty of water and shade available to them as well. And lastly, we're going to talk about sun safety. As you can see on your screen, sunshine is like wine. A little bit of it goes a long way. Now, we all need the sun to stay healthy. Sun is what helps us make vitamin D, keeps our bones healthy, our skin healthy. But you need to know that seniors especially are more prone to burning and to skin damage. Senior skin is thinner, it's less elastic, and after the age of 40, your melanin in your skin, which is the pigment producing hormone, decreases by 10 to 20% per decade. So every 10 years you lose 10 to 20% of your melanin, which means that you have less ability to tan and protect your skin from the sun. Most skin cancers also appear after the age of 50 years old. So that's another reason to really double your precautions as a senior, because your skin, if skin cancer is hiding in there waiting to come out, you can exacerbate that greatly by spending too much time out in the sun or not taking the proper precautions. And you have to remember, sunburns are burns, and you need to treat them as such. A regular sunburn is a first-degree burn. You've got reddened skin, you've got loss of protection, so you're more prone to losing fluids and things like that. If you ever get a burn that results in blistering, that is actually a second-degree burn, and you really need to seek medical attention. Either go to your doctor, go to an urgent care, or last result, go to the ER. Because when your skin blisters like that, you've actually damaged the top layer of your skin, and that can get infected very easily, as well as going to accelerate the loss of fluids and electrolytes from your body. So it's very important that you do that. Avoid prolonged exposure to the sun. I told you UV rays are strongest between 10 and 4. Wear light, loose clothing, and always wear a hat with a brim, to protect your face from the sun. If you don't like wearing hats like I don't, and you don't have any hair like I don't, apply sunscreen liberally to the exposed areas, and that includes the top of your head and your ears. Skin cancer is one of the places they start most quickly is on the ears. Apply the sunscreen 30 minutes before leaving the house. Use an SPF 30 or greater, and if sweating or in the water, make sure you reapply at least every 2 hours. And then remember, waste not, want not does not apply to sunscreen. Use it liberally, and at the end of the season, throw it out. Get new sunscreen at the beginning of each season. Your sunscreen degrades pretty quickly over time. Don't be digging out the 10-year-old tube out of the closet. That's going to be SPF 1. It's not going to do you much good. And don't forget your lips. This is a mistake I made for years. Ladies use a lipstick that has SPF in it, and guys use a lip balm or chapstick that has SPF in it. Most of it has SPF 15, which is adequate for protecting, but you got to apply it probably every half an hour. Make sure you wear sunglasses as well. Sunlight damages your eyes, and none of us needs help with that. And then again, don't forget your pets in the sun. And that's it. Questions from anybody? Sir?
What about like on cloudy days? I mean, if you're out in the sun on cloudy days, like say swimming in a lake.
You can still get a sunburn on cloudy days. The clouds shield you to a certain extent, but the UV rays still get through the sun, and you can still burn. People make the mistake often of thinking that because it's cloudy, they don't need to use any precautions. That's not true. You may not burn as quickly as on a bright sunny day, but eventually you will burn, I guarantee you. So.
Another question, what about if you have a full head of hair, you have to put sunscreen on your head?
No, but it's still advisable to wear a hat. It also keeps your moisture in too. So, okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.